Hello, welcome to another deck profile. This time I'm doing one for the TCG for the upcoming Photon of Hypernova format. That is the set that's releasing next month. I'm not a fan of the current TCG format with all the Shizu cards and Bystials running around. I don't think they're going to go away, but in the new format there's going to be new cards that come out that give a different way to play Tearlaments. And what I'm showing off today is the Kashtira Tearlaments deck. So this deck profile is sort of based off of Hani's deck profile that he recently uploaded. I agree with a lot of the ideas that he had in it, increasing the number of Kashtira and Tearlament cards that you have in the deck ensures that you see access to both halves of the deck consistently. These two, both Kashtira and Tearlaments, although they kind of conflict with each other, like there are some cards that lock you into Xyz monsters, which I'll go over, but the fact that they have a card that explicitly is a crossover between the archetype makes them synergize pretty well together, and if you sequence your plays properly, it just creates a very powerful board that solves some of the issues with Kashtira, which is that it loses pretty hard to Nibiru if you just play the pure Kashtira, but if you're able to go into Rokalas, that's a great way to play around it. And it also solves one of the problems with Tearlaments, which is losing to D-Shifter. Kashtira just ignores D-Shifter, so you can play with your other half of the deck. It's a very interesting crossover. I'm beginning to see why the deck is so powerful in the OCG, and honestly kind of excited about playing it. It's pretty interesting. So going to the deck profile, for the Tearlaments, we have the standard count of all of the names, 2 Rhino Hearts still. I don't think you really need more than that with how many copies of the field spell that you're playing. Instant Fusion, of course, because it's crazy. And then 3 copies of Perla Rhino, self-explanatory. And then 1 Solic and 1 Crime. Some people have the idea of playing Meta Noise, because cards with Book of Moon-like effects are going to be a lot better in the Photon Hypernova format because they are good against Kashtira specifically. Like if your opponent special summons a Kashtira with their first monster and you just Book of Moon it, it becomes a bit awkward for them to play. But yeah, for now I have it as 1 Crime. Obviously a lot of things are going to change between now and when the cards actually come out. Then we have the new card, Tearlaments Kashtira. This card is insane, insane. It is Havnus 2.0, first of all. It's also Merly 2.0, and it's also a level 7. It's also a Kashtira. It's a free special summon from the hand. Unlike Havnus, you don't have to wait for your opponent to activate a monster effect on the field. You can just do it at any time during the main phase by banishing a Tear or Kashtira card from your hand or graveyard. And while that may sound costly, some of the Kashtira cards give you benefits off of being banished, so they actually recoup the advantage. This card is crazy. I'm playing 2 because it's not a starter by itself, but it's something that you can search off of Perla Rhino, you can search it off of Kit, you can search it off of Fenrir, you can E-Telly it out with Papyrus. It's just so good. The only real weakness of this card is that it's psychic, it's not an aqua, so you have to be careful what you're trying to fuse into with it. You can still go into Kit with this and another tier name because it is a Tearlaments monster, but you can't go into Kaleido Heart with it, so just be careful with that. But then for the rest of the Kashtira engine, we have 3 Unicorn. He's your best starter, your 1-card starter for the Kashtira side of the deck. You want to see him in your opening hand 100% of the time, so that's why I'm maxing out on copies of him. Yeah, self-explanatory. It's very good. And then also the ability to rip a card from your opponent's extra deck face down is also valuable, especially against Tearlaments and a lot of cards that rely on a lot of decks that rely on the extra deck. Then we have Fenrir. Self-explanatory. He's not as good of a starter as Unicorn, but he has a better on-field effect, being able to banish any face-up card face down, and also being able to Rhoda for any of the Kashtira monsters. Rysart, also not a starter by himself, but a very good, I guess extender is one way to describe it. But this is also a new card that's releasing in Photon Hypernova. It's basically Psybeast, but actually good, because you can banish any of your Kashtira cards for cost, and then banish a few cards from the top of your opponent's deck face down, which is fairly annoying for your opponent. If they're playing any decks with valuable one-ofs, the Kashtira deck can like really rip them apart and basically FTK them before they even get a chance to play. But yeah, Rise Heart is very good. You can special summon him if you have a Kashtira monster. One thing to note is if you use that effect to special summon, you are locked into Xyz monsters for the rest of the turn. Though this is not the case if you normal summon him and use the effect to banish, then you're not locked into Xyz. But if you use this effect to special summon, you are locked. So this is what I was talking about being careful about sequencing. Then we have 3 Prime Planet Paraisos. I mean, it's basically this, but for Kashtira. So it is also a new card that's coming out in Photon Hypernova. All of the ones that are labeled OCG are coming out in Hypernova, by the way. Yeah, it's a 1-card unicorn. So yes, there's 3 additional copies of unicorn. Very good to have. And then the pop effect is a little harder to pull off than the Pearl Rhino, but it is something to note. If Shangri-La activates its effect, it's a trigger effect on a new chain. You can target any card on the field and pop it. Then we have 2 Papayas. This is like an E-Telly for the deck. This is a huge boost to the consistency and power level of the deck. I'm only playing 2 because it's by itself. It doesn't do really anything by itself. You need to have access to your Kashtira engine already, and so I wanted to max out. I prefer to max out on consistency of seeing Unicorn rather than seeing this. But yeah, this is an extremely good card. This one also locks you into Xyz monsters once you use its effect to special from deck. So keep that in mind. And then if it's banished, it has a great floating effect, which is you can target one of your banished Kashtira cards, accept another copy of itself, and add it to your hand. This is great synergy with both Tearlaments, Kashtira, and Rise Heart, since they allow you to banish this and potentially recur one of your other banished Kashtira cards. Birth is really, really good. I might consider playing 3 of this, honestly, because it allows you to go into your Kashtira engine if you don't see it in your opening hand necessarily. Like if you mill some of your Kashtira monsters, if you mill Unicorn with Kit or whatever, you can reborn it and then go Kashtira combo like that. So I would maybe consider playing 3 of this, but right now I'm at 2. Yeah, you can normal summon a level 7 without tributing, and then also it's a non-targeting reborn from banished or graveyard. Then it has another effect if your opponent activates a spell card. You can target exactly 3 cards in your opponent's graveyard and banish them face down. It has to be exactly 3, not up to 3. But still something to note. Then we have Kashtira Big Bang, a new trap that's coming out. It's kind of like evenly matched, that is searchable within the Kashtira archetype. If you control a Kashtira Xyz monster, or if a Kashtira Xyz monster is on the field. Oh, I just realized you don't even have to control one. It's if a Kashtira Xyz monster is on the field. So you always learn something new from reading these cards, trying them out. So apparently if either player controls a Kashtira Xyz, you can use this effect. You can evenly match. Both players have to banish monsters face down, so they only control one. This will bypass any forms of protection because it makes the player banish the card face down. And if it's banished, it has a really powerful effect. Again, you can target a Kashtira Xyz you have. Add one of the Kashtira monsters that you own that's attached to it to your hand, and then you can special summon it from your hand. Yeah, this is like pretty self-explanatory why this is so good, but yeah, you can target your like Shangri-La, detach a Fenrir, and just special summon him for free. All part of the same effect. It's very good. One of. I think it might be bricky if you play more than one of it, so I would think I would keep it at 1. And then again, for maximizing consistency of seeing both sides of the deck, 1 terraforming and set rotation. And then you have, I made the choice to play 40 cards in this version of the deck. So if you want to do that, you have 3 tech slots. Here I put Book of Eclipse. That's an idea that some people are floating. The upside of this card is that it turns off like your opponent's Shangri-La and all of their Kashtira monsters. It's not really a card that they can play around. It does have a weakness though, that it can be ashed, since it does include an effect to draw cards. So just keep that in mind. But it can also be used defensively, like if your opponent tries to imperm your kit, you can Book of Eclipse it, and it will still resolve. So it's an idea. There are several others that I will talk about in the side deck. It's not really a side deck, it's just a list of other tech cards. But now for the extra deck, we have Kaleido Heart, 1 Kaleido Heart. Some people play 2 of this, or some people are considering playing 2 of this because of Diablosis, the Mind Hacker. So one thing you need to note is, with this Kashtira deck being really popular, either in the pure variant or with the Tearlaments variant, your opponent's always going to be resolving Mind Hacker turn 1 if they can. They get to rip 1 card out of your extra deck face down. So you need to play 2 kits, obviously. If you play 1, you're probably just going to lose when they resolve Mind Hacker. And so, yeah, that's something to consider. You might want to play 2 Kaleido Heart if you want a board breaker. But yeah, one rule call list. This is yeah, playing around Nib is very, very valuable in a deck that otherwise gets stomped by it and has no way of playing around it. Then we have Dragostapelia. It's nice to have. It can make your opponent's monsters level 1, which is also relevant since they can't overlay into rank 7s. One Garura, I'm not really sure what to put in the slot. You could play Mud Dragon, but that's a little awkward to make in this version of the deck. You'd have to use, like, as your other material, like Dark Charmer or Mind Hacker or something to go into Mud Dragon. So I have Garura right now for a free draw. 2 kit, yeah, like I said before, 1 Dweller. I'll move this around here. I don't know why it's not with the other Xyz monsters. It may seem redundant, but like given that you have this card, but they can always out it, and you want to have like a lingering floodgate that just auto wins against tier. So I think Dweller is still probably going to be a good choice to have. Yeah, so I'll just go back to the links real quick. Dark Charmer, self-explanatory. Sprind, self-explanatory. And then Elf, I'm not sure if I want to play this, but I still think it's probably worth it with giving both targeting protection and an ability to play during your opponent's turn. Yeah, Elf is just good. And then, yeah, number 89, Diablosis, the Mind Hacker. This card is insane. I could honestly see this card like maybe getting banned in the future because of how much degeneracy it enables in this deck. So like you look at your opponent's extra deck first of all, and you banish 1 monster from the face down, so it's just gone forever. And it has other effects. So at the end of the battle phase, if it destroyed a monster by battle, you can target a card in your opponent's graveyard and banish it face down. I don't know why that effect is there, but it's there. That one rarely comes up. But the other one to note that really makes this card insane is if a card your opponent owns and possesses is banished face down while you control this card, except during the damage step, you can banish cards from the top of your opponent's deck face down equal to their face down banished cards. So this really causes you to snowball the amount of cards that you are taking out of your opponent's deck. So if they have 8 cards banished face down already, which they probably will because that's how much you do on turn 1, if you resolve Mind Hacker again, you banish 8 more, and then you banish 16 more the next time you do it. It's crazy. I mean, yeah, that effect is hard once per turn, obviously, but still. It wipes out like a large portion of your opponent's deck, and there's really nothing that they can do about it. And yeah, so we have 2 Zeus. So the reason I am contemplating 2 Zeus is, again, due to Mind Hacker, because Zeus is very good against Kashtira. It's pretty hard for them to like stop this card from hitting the field. And so if they look at your extra deck, it's likely that the first card that they'll take out is either Kit. It's Kit if you're going to play one of it, but they also might take out Zeus. So I have a second one of it, which I think is probably a good idea because it's crazy. And then Shangri-La. Yeah, obviously this is a mandatory card. I don't think you need to play 2 of this probably, because you're likely not going to make it going second, or you may not be able to. But yeah, it's so good. It is like so good. Like during each standby phase, the fact that you can just special any Kashtira monster from your deck just makes it like very, very annoying to deal with this card. And then also, of course, it has the zone lockdown effect. Every time your opponent's card is banished face down, it's a trigger effect that is not once per turn. You choose an unused monster or a spell in trap zone, and it cannot be used while this card is face up on the field. And this applies even if this card gets negated by like Dark Ruler, because it is a lingering effect. So they actually have to remove this card with something like Book of Eclipse. That would free up the zones if they do that, or if they like Raigeki or Dark Hole it. But even if they have Raigeki or Dark Hole, this card can detach a material to protect it from being destroyed as well. So yeah, very, very toxic. Speaking of toxic, we have Kashtira, a Rise Heart, and the card being released in Hypernova. One of the most broken Xyz monsters ever released. I really don't know what the fuck Konami was thinking when they designed this card. This is like so stupid. The first time I read it, I was like, oh my god. I have to play this deck now because I don't want to be on the receiving end of this thing and automatically lose to it every time. But yeah, what it does is, first of all, it's basically a Link 1. If either player had activated the effect of Shangri-La this turn, you can just Xyz, slap it on top of any of your Kashtira monsters as a Link 1. It's a 3k, Macrocosmos on legs, so every card sent to the graveyard is banished instead. And then every time a card is banished, this is a mandatory effect to attach any banished card to it as material. So you can potentially recur your own face-down banished cards, or you can like attach one of your opponent's banished cards to it face down, like any banished card. Yeah, that's it is something else. And then for no reason, it has another effect, which is a quick effect to detach 3 materials from it and then target any card on the field and banish it face down. Yeah, like this card is so stupid. Like it's basically an FTK against Tearlaments. If they're just playing pure tier, or like a Shizu tier even, you summon this, you basically win on the spot. You don't even need D-Shifter. This is D-Shifter on crack. Yeah, this card is a big mistake. Huge mistake. I can't really explain better how broken it is. It's just so stupid. And then also even since it has the Macrocosmos effect, if you have like Big Bang is its material, which you can easily attach to it, so you can attach any banished card. If you detach it to activate the other effect, you can then use Big Bang's banished effect to add back or special summon a Kashtira monster, or you can use Papyrus to grab back one of your banished Kashtira monsters. Yeah, crazy. And then here, it's not a side deck, it's just an idea of other tech cards that you can play. Something interesting that the OCG is doing is they're playing Dracosack and Cherubini. Obviously they have Kit Kalos banned, so they're in a bit of a different position. But this is still something that you can potentially do in the TCG, though it does require 2 extra deck slots. Basically what you do is, you make Dracosack easily, just 2 level 7s. Obviously you can make that. But then you can use its effect to create 2 tokens, both of which are level 3. And you can go with 2 level 3 monsters into Cherubini, and then use Cherubini's effect to send a level 3 monster. You can send Havnus. It sends it for cost, so you don't get to use Havnus' effect here. But then you can link Cherubini plus Dracosack into Sprind, and then you can send Merly. Then you have Merly infuse the Havnus that you sent earlier into Kit. So it's a way to get from your Kashtira engine to your Tearlaments engine. I don't know if it's necessary because of how many Tearlaments cards you're playing, but it's just an option to consider. It's very cool. Yeah, Mushroom Man number 2. This card is a meme, but it is very funny. And the idea is that in the Kashtira mirror match, if your opponent's playing pure, they don't want to have a monster on their field because they need to control no monsters to be able to special summon like their Unicorn and start their Kashtira plays. So if you just normal summon this card like at the end of your combo, and it passes to your opponent, and then they get control of it. They can't special summon any of their Kashtira monsters. And also during the standby phase, it has a mandatory activated effect, which counts as your opponent activating effect, which lets you use like Fenrir or Unicorn or something like that. So it is a very funny tech. I don't know if it's actually good. It's probably not good, but it's funny. And I'm gonna do it to someone someday. Kurikara Jiv Incarnate. This card is actually going to be probably pretty good this format because your opponent is going to be activating like multiple effects. So like their Shangri-La, for example, they're going to activate it during the standby phase every time. There's no good reason not to do it because they want to get like a Fenrir on field. So that's one free tribute for Kurikara. But then also if you like do anything, every time a card gets banished, a Rise Heart has to activate since it's mandatory. So that gives you like another tribute. And then they're probably going to activate Mind Hacker, so that's like 3 tributes. So you can like easily tribute like several monsters that they control and give like a huge Kurikara. And this could help clear their board. Yeah, it's in contrast to like Lava Golem and Sphere mode, but unlike those, it doesn't use your normal summon, so it's cool. I'm interested in trying this card. Nibiru, if you're playing against pure Kashtira, Nibiru kind of shits on them. They can't play around it in any way. So yeah, Nibiru is nice. And then Swords of Concealing Light is another option, similar to Book of Eclipse, but it doesn't lose to Ash, though it is like a continuous spell, so they might be able to like Cosmic it on activation or something like that. But yeah, it does pretty much the same thing, just it books all of your opponent's monsters, so like freeing up your zones and letting you can like go straight into Zeus, wipe their board, and then start playing. Another new card coming out in Hypernova, which I'm excited for, is Triple Tactics Tasking. So it's another Triple Tactics card, kind of like Talents, but this one, it lets you set any normal spell or traps directly from your deck if they had activated a monster effect this turn. And wait a second. Wait, it doesn't have to be during main phase. I'm actually just realizing that it says if your opponent has activated a monster effect this turn. Whereas Talents, they have to, it only works if they activated something during your main phase. Is this like a translation error? I don't know if this is a translation error, but that's so stupid if it's live even if they don't activate it during the main phase. So if your opponent uses Shangri-La during the standby phase, this card's live automatically. That is kind of crazy. Yeah, this card's crazy. And then if your opponent controls a monster, you can add the spell trap to your hand instead, in which case you can activate it this turn. Yeah, this card is kind of broken. And it makes like cards like Bestials like way worse than they are. I feel like we're gonna see less Bestials, hopefully. I hate those cards. I hope we don't have to see them as much. But this card punishes them very hard for doing it. I mean, some cards that you could search are like Papyrus, for example, which is a normal spell. Big Bang is a normal trap, but then also like Terraforming, that's a pretty big one. Instant Fusion, yeah, those are pretty good cards. And then the rest of the cards here are other cards that you can search with tasking. So you can actually search Triple Tactics Talent with tasking if you want to like look at their hands, since it is a normal spell. Dark Ruler obviously is a normal spell. Dimensional Barrier, normal trap. That one, it doesn't matter if they have a monster or not, you can just set it and then debarrier during their turn. And then Metaverse to go into like Zombie World or whichever field spell you need, but probably Zombie World is going to be what you go into. And then Evenly Matched is a normal trap, technically, so you can search that as well. Lightning Storm and Harpy's Feather Duster are other obvious choices. The ratios for the side deck are going to be a little weird to figure out, because do you want to play like 3 of this and like 1 of everything else, or do you want to play multiples of these still? It's going to be a little tricky to build decks, but we'll see how everything plays out. But that's it for the deck profile. I think this deck is extremely strong. It might even be stronger than a Shizu tier. I guess we'll see how things play out if either of these decks get hit before we arrive at the Photon Hypernova format. And now I'm going to go into a few replays and show off what the deck is about. First replay is showing off a standard full combo, basically, with both Kashtira and Tearlament halves of the deck. This is like if you open both field spells, for example, it does this, but also if you open like Unicorn plus Pellerino, Unicorn plus Instant Fusion, Unicorn plus Randallhart even, there's like several ways to get to this combo, so it's very consistent. You're going to see it quite often. So yeah, so we go Parysos. We do this first because we need to control no monsters to special summon Unicorn. So we special Unicorn. We search the E-Tally. We do not activate it yet because it will lock us into Exceeds monsters. So then we start playing Tier. We do these plays first. Here I'm just assuming that you don't mill anything, so let's just say you just go straight into Rule Kalos, not luck reliant. Okay, so now you're insulated from Nib, and now you can go Pious to special summon Fenrir from deck. Fenrir will search. Riseheart. Go into Shangri-La here. Then you go into Riseheart. Riseheart, not a Riseheart. Then you use this effect to banish Big Bang for cost. And then it banishes the top 3 of your opponent's deck face down, which triggers Shangri-La, to lock one of their zones. And then it triggers Big Bang as well to special summon one of your attached Kashtira monsters. Now you go into Mind Hacker since you have 2 level 7s. Yeah, I forgot to mention that when Riseheart banishes a Kashtira card, he becomes level 7. So then you go into Mind Hacker, you look at your opponent's extra deck, banish their best monster face down. And that triggers both effects. It triggers Diablosis and it triggers Shangri-La again. So they banishes 4 more, which is, they had 4 face down banish cards before, and now they have 8. And then you pass turn. But essentially, what you can do, you can leave the Shangri-La on field, or if you're playing against a deck that's like really weak to Macrocosmos, you can just slap a Riseheart on top of Shangri-La. In this case, let's just say you keep it, and then during your standby phase, or either standby phase, you Shangri-La, special summon Fenrir. So you get all of that off of just those 2 cards, and that's something that's achieved like very, very consistently. If you have any additional extender, even one of them, you end on a Riseheart on top of this, because you'll have another body here, and that you would have put a Riseheart on top of, which is, like I said, Macrocosmos and a banish face down. Now I'm going to show off a replay that I had on EDO and one of the competitive servers, playing against Earth Machines. And so in this case I was playing Dark Hole. It's another tech option, but I think it might be a little worse because, like I mentioned before, the ability of Shangri-La to protect itself from destruction. So it may not be the way to go, but, you know. Earth Machine combos, I still don't know what these cards do, honestly, but I know he's going to end on like Regulus plus Super Dora, their standard stuff. Don't think I can fast forward through this, so we'll just write it out. But yeah, in the meantime, I guess, as you can see, I have the 2-card, 2-engine combo with Paraisos and Pelourinho. That's what you want to see. Obviously, going second complicates things a bit, but I also have tasking. It's going to allow me to search another board breaker if I can bait out the Regulus negate, which I can easily. Okay, so then it passes this to my turn. Activate Dark Hole, he negates with Regulus. Now, I drew Talents for turn, so now both of them are live. Both triple tactics cards, which is crazy. So I'm going to go tasking. I'm going to search Instant Fusion here because I already have Talents, so I can just take control. He's going to target Citadel. And then I'm going to take control of this because this is unaffected. So, and I go straight to battle phase, hit over it. It is a little problematic because I can't special summon Unicorn anymore, but that should be fine. Instant Fusion, we start playing Tear. He imperms it, of course. But I have Tearlaments, Kashtira, and Merly in hand. So that's 2 extenders. Then I go Kaleidoheart, and then Pelourinho. Then we go into Sprint. And then now we resolve the other effective kit. And yeah, you can also special summon this off of kit because it's a tier monster, which is funny. Now I want to do some Kashtira plays. Banish some cards face down. We get Shangri-La, standby phase, summon. And also, yeah, Sprint is also like very especially good in this version of the deck because of the other effect that lets you detach from an Xyz to bounce a monster. You're always going to have material to do that with Shangri-La, so ending on Sprint is like pretty good if you can. So it's going to go into Metal Cruncher. So here I'm just going to use Sprint to either force out the Regulus or just bounce it back. So I have multiple other interruptions. We're going to see is pretty insane. As Reborn, he's going to go into level 10. I'm going to use Fenrir here and lock down another zone. And then here I use Paraisos since I activated this effect to pop my own Kaleidoheart, and then I start playing Tear during my opponent's turn as well. More cross synergy between the archetypes, it's just hilarious. Now I can even go into Drago. He goes into Super Dora again. Now I can't really do anything about this with Drago. So yeah, I used Shangri-La to protect itself once, so he had to attack it again. which leaves my Fenrir on field. So he goes into Zeus. He needs to hold it, obviously, because any top deck wins with the game. Okay, so then Fenrir. Now I search Tearlaments Kashtira because I can just freely special summon it from hand. I'm going to do that here. Basically, I'm just trying to get back into Kaleido Heart to bounce the Zeus. Because I will not be able to kill him without doing that. So let me go Kit. Then yeah, Kit can revive Kaleido Heart, don't forget that. So I'm going to force it out. It's going to wipe everything. Kaleido Heart's going to bring itself back. I only have 11 cards left in deck, but that's plenty for me. Going to Rule Kalos, and I haven't normal summoned yet, so that's enough for lethal. Up next, I had a pretty cool mirror match against the, well, not really mirror match, but against the current format version of Ishizu Kashtira tier, with also Bestials. This is a pretty popular version of the deck at the moment that topped the remote dual YCS and some regionals as well. So I'm going to go Havnus. I'm going to whiff off of Havnus, but I have Havnus 2. He's going to Unicorn. I'm fine with that because I played 2 Kit. So now I have Havnus number 2. I get to try again. So I get to mill 6 during my opponent's turn. I hit 2 names. I'm assuming he's playing he might be playing Bestials, so I went for it. 2 fusions. That was correct. Then I go into Kit. And then Kit summons Merly, and then I go into Drago. So my opponent still has plays. I'm going to negate Kit. I don't want to give him the ability to search for Kashtira Tearlament. So now he does some more Tearlament plays. Goes Kaleido Heart to bounce back the Drago, makes sense. And then he reborns using Birth. So now I know he has Druid's Worm. He also milled Keldo and Medora. It's going to be quite a bit of a pain to play through. We do have a pretty decent hand though. Okay, so I draw. Drew Terraforming, that's really good. So he gets Fenrir. And then I activated a spell, so he banished 3 cards from my graveyard, which I guess makes sense. I searched Havnus. I'm trying to hit 2 names here, obviously, because he has Druid's Worm. So he opts to use Druid's Worm and Fenrir. He wants to hold the Shufflers as long as he can. So then Sprint bounces back my Kit, but he doesn't know what I'm going for because all I need to do is search a level 4 and go into Dweller, Battle Phase, and then Zeus, and hope that he doesn't top deck well. It's really the only play, but well, yeah, sorry, not the only play. I need to do this first. And oh, I just realized probably should have done this first. Searched this, activated this, special summoned this, and then use Zeus, because that'll give me more mills. But something I could have done better. He has 2 Keldos in hand, which is unfortunate. But he's able to do the same thing to me that I just did. I do get Zeus's effect. It doesn't really help in this case. But I do have the Unicorn that I've had this whole time. So, Andrew Birth is really good as well. E-Telly. Now, since Birth is non-targeting, he's going to use his Shizu cards. But that triggers both Fenrir and Unicorn, so that's pretty much game over. I'm going to banish, special summon Shangri-La again. Yep, Shangri-La, detach, special summon again. Then I'm going to go Mind Hacker just to hit his last fusions so he can't top deck into any tiers because I'm going to make Zeus again. Attack with Mind Hacker into Zeus. I don't think there's any way for me to kill in that position. So he draws, doesn't really matter what he draws because I'm going to special summon Fenrir. But yeah, GG.